Only 2 more movies left in this series. It's the beginning of the end as we look at another Swan Princess 2-parter, starting with A Fairy Tale is Born.
All fairy tale endings need a start. Each story begins with an empty...
Unlike the last few movies, the next 2 came out 3 years later in 2023. I guess Richard Rich wanted to end this brilliant series on a high note, thus leading to another pair of movies that tell a full story. But can they be more cohesive than Kingdom of Music and A Royal Wedding? Only one way to find out. Cue the usual water swirl animation, because that will never get old. And we open on a non-medieval looking town, where there's a show starring Queen Uberta's alter ego, Madame LeCroix. There's a man in a trench coat knocking on the hood of his wagon before we jump back 30 years. We haven't even seen Uberta this movie, and we're jumping into the past unprompted? Kinda weird, but okay. Guess we're getting an extended flashback this time. So, 30 years ago, Uberta was actually a princess who married a peasant named Maximilian, voiced by Jesse Lapierre. They were just going about their lives in the forest they call home before Chamberlain shows up to give them a letter.
Dear Uberta, I am dead.
Okay, continue.
You are now the queen.
Well, that's certainly the wake-up call she needed. Kinda twisted that a relative died for it, but hey, wacky backstory! So Uberta and Max head to their new castle where they are greeted by their new servants, with Chamberlain leading into a song about
What does it take to be a queen? It's probably best if we start with the basics.
I just realized, while this takes place 30 years before the present, Chamberlain looks almost exactly like he does in later movies. So how old is he in the other films? At least Uberta looks a bit younger since her hair is black, though she starts looking like her normal self when given a wig, and putting aside the usual anachronisms, we do get some original backstory when she's invited to tea by King William, voiced by Michael Sork in this movie, and his wife Queen Aubrey. Gee, I wonder what happened to her later. Like her future daughter, Aubrey is very kind and encouraging. They all go into a song about how Uberta can be a good queen in her own way without needing to copy the other monarchs, like...
She won't abide of not just any mouse, you see. They must be important and perfectly purebred, like a me.
I will say this much. At least Uberta doesn't end up like her in the future, because she's her own brand of quirky. Soon comes the coronation. She's given her classic look, while Maximilian has a more laid-back getup for a king. And even if we don't get much on their past history, you at least get that their love for each other is real.
Oh, what I see, you know exactly what they mean. You will be the queen of queens.
We get a little more world building as Uberta is given a chance to join the Council of Crowns by King Ivan, voiced by King Sebastian's VA, Joe Oakman. It's where kings and queens can meet up to coordinate with one another or resolve disputes. But she wants to pursue her own causes and lets Max take her place, even if he isn't of royal blood. She then talks to Aubrey about what cause she could back, and learns what Wixom is an advocate for, which is the good of dogs.
I wonder if the plight of unwanted dogs might be more lasting.
So she goes to the Pound Dungeon, where this David Lodge-sounding guy shows off what dogs he has. Also, his henchman is large and slow because, then someone sings a sad song about needing to hug dogs and whatever. And Uberta adopts 3 dogs after taking a liking to them. But what names will they be getting?
What will you name them? This, that, and the other.
How original. Max makes his first appearance in the Council of Crowns, which is currently headed by King Sebastian. Everyone in the meeting learns of Uberta's plan to help unwanted dogs find homes, and most of them approve.
But what about all the unwanted cats? The poor kitties.
Howard, don't you know that only dogs get treated well in animated movies? King Edgar then brings up the problems of thieves in their kingdoms and how they ought to be handled. When said thieves are referred to as barbarians, Maximilian says this.
My father came from these people, and I never once saw him bring an axe to the dinner table. It would be better if we called them what they really are. Hungry people who just need work.
Alright, I know I mentioned on occasion how royals in this series mostly tend to be unselfish in past videos. Maybe Richard Rich and his team believe that this is how royalty or government officials should act. But here that insight comes by plausibly. Since Max isn't of noble birth, he clearly relates to those who struggle due to poverty and a lack of work. So instead of jailing them, he prefers giving them the means to live. William agrees with Max and tries to convince the other royals after the meeting. Even Ivan is open to changing his mind if rehabilitation actually works. We quickly get a test case for this idea when we cut to some thieves trying to rob this farm. Max shows up to stop them, but the thieves don't turn over a new leaf at first.
To the pirates it is.
Come on, seriously? Come on.
Luckily, Max personally knew them in the past, so when the landowner shows up to threaten them, Max convinces him to just hire the thieves as farmhands to prevent future robberies. Word of this event reaches the council, and while Edgar and Howard aren't pleased, Ivan is willing to admit he was wrong about Max.
Got lucky, I guess.
King's rule number 1. Take credit for your accomplishments.
Okay, I can accept the trick of adding a shade effect to the background to hide how much it looks like the unshaded one. Anyway, Howard tells his wife about what Uberta's doing, and it makes her so mad that it leads into a funny back and forth through letters. This leads to Wixom challenging Uberta to a dog show contest.
I'm sure.
Are you?
Stop writing me!
I will.
Good!
Great.
I wonder how fast these letters would have to be for this to happen. Uberta talks to Aubrey about what to do about her dogs, while Ferdinand eavesdrops and thinks that they're criticizing his cooking.
You'll need someone very clever who can train them to do fantastic things.
Yes. We must prove that you don't have to be a purebred to be loved.
And Ferdinand's misunderstanding leads to him being hired as Uberta's personal chef. That means he's also in charge of feeding her dogs, who try to steal food for themselves. You might think that they will talk like the other animal buddies in this series, like Jean-Bob or Puffin, but shock of all shock, it never happens. That's kinda nuts. And who's gonna be the dog trainer? Well, there is one candidate.
Dr. Balthazar Rogers, professor, scientist, and genius.
So yeah, Rogers used to be a university professor. Uberta wants his help in training the dogs to be just as good as Wixom's purebreds. She even toys with his desires to show off his incredible talents.
And see that you lack the necessary vision-fortitude.
Vision-fortitude's my middle name.
Nevertheless,
I'll do it.
your contract.
And Rogers' training method consists of being the alpha dog, which means dressing up like a dog and giving them the stare. And it works. Back at the council, Sebastian announces his resignation as council head and endorses Max as his replacement. Despite objections from Howard and Edgar, everyone else votes to make Max the next chairman. Given his success with reforming thieves and those from dire straits, it makes sense. We get more examples of this project with a homeless painter named Magnus. He's to paint a picture of Uberta, which she doesn't make easy.
Me as a classic goddess. Or me as the tiger mother. Rawr.
He finally gets her in the right pose to start his painting, which we'll see later. For now, it's dog show time, and it kind of resembles dog competitions we see today. At least, more so toward the end. Thanks to Rogers' training, the mutts get their act together and look graceful in the showcase. Wixom bribed the judges to help her dogs in the second event of picking which cup held the ball. So the tiebreaker is this obstacle course. At first, Uberta's dogs fall behind, but then they rally with Rogers' encouragement. Or rather, this runs like the wind while the others hold on by the tail. They actually overtake the poodles until one of the latter gets stuck under something. While the remaining poodles go to the finish, Uberta's dogs go back to rescue it, and the poodle responds to this kindness by letting them win. Not gonna lie, that's kinda touching. This victory leads to the adoption of all the dogs from the pound from earlier, and the owner just couldn't believe it. Uberta then notices one family missing out on the adoption spree, so she does something noble by letting them have her dogs. She later admits that she's going to miss them dearly, but Max reassures her that she did the right thing, and that she'll be the Queen of Queens one day. Chamberlain even made her plush versions of her dogs. That's nice. And now for the reveal of Magnus's masterpiece.
Why, look.
Beautiful.
I wish the whole movie was in 2D, or at least have a stylized 3D look. Some time passes and we hit another milestone. Uberta tells the people of her kingdom that she's pregnant, though she tries to be subtle about it at first.
There's a little pumpkin. Oh, come on, people. I'm having a baby.
But you're so old. Or how old are you? She then talks to Aubrey, who is overjoyed about this news. It's also here where we learn how much Uberta really looks up to her, so...
Sweet Uberta, your joy is my joy. I cannot wait to hold your child and pray that he or she will call me Auntie A for all of my days.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really enjoy some of the more grounded moments in this movie. Sure, we still have some silly Swan Princess gags and anachronisms, but the characterization is on point. Maybe not having talking animals like Jean-Bob really give Uberta and the others time to shine. But until they show up, here's Kid Derek in CGI form.
Catching Fire is just a king and a young prince kind of thing. If you get the queen involved, well, you know.
She freaks out?
Well, yeah.
Even though she's clearly watching from above, this is meant to reference Derek's little archery trick from the first movie, except now we learn that he learnt it from his old man. Uberta then promotes Rogers into a lord, and hires him to train Derek for his becoming a future king. At the next council meeting, Ivan raises the issue of pirates raiding all their merchant ships. The others want to use violence to handle them, except for Max, who was then mocked by Edgar for it.
Let me guess. You want to make a deal with the pirates, too. What does a peasant's son know about this council's dealings?
Rest assured, King Edgar, I am well aware of the Agreement of '02, the Treaty of '05, and the Compromise of '09.
Okay, pirates are a bit more complicated than simple thieves. While similar circumstances can lead to one being a pirate, other factors include the search for resources that aren't available elsewhere or the desire to live a freer life, both for good and for ill. Either way, I think deterring pirates through non-violent means should be considered if possible. Max knows how hard that task is, but he's open to try. And before tempers can flare further, William tells everyone to take a break and cool down before reassembling again. That night, the harbor master sees a ship taking off under Maximilian's flag. And then in the morning, pirates begin attacking the harbor, forcing them to use Ivan's cannons from the fortress. They suspect that they might have been celebrating something, and so William and Ivan go out to the scene and find bits of Max's ship. One Piece had his journal with an entry about wanting the pirates to see reason, and that he won't wait for the council to make a decision. Ivan wants to destroy the diary, but William convinces him to keep it.
Fine. But so long as I live, no one will ever see it.
And it's then followed by Uberta grieving over the loss of her husband. See, this is what I like to see. Just someone reacting genuinely to the tragedy of losing a loved one too soon. And since the chemistry between Uberta and Max felt so natural, his death really stung because the world also lost a ruler who could connect with people from all walks of life. And while not the best example of color saturation, I do appreciate them trying to convey the gloomier tone of the scene. This is also where Roger steps in as a father figure to young Derek.
I will play catch and fire with you all the days of my life.
Just today is good.
Ivan then offers Uberta a seat on the council, but since she now has to rule her kingdom and take care of Derek, she turns him down. Fast forward a year later, and now it's Aubrey's turn to have a baby. William is nervous, of course, and in a bit of retconning, Uberta is the one who hands baby Odette to him. Also, Derek is waiting around as well. Of course, neither he nor his mom are present when the hats are thrown. But if you remember what happened in the first movie, you know what happened to Aubrey. Uberta comes forward to tell William the bad news. Well, Aubrey was doomed by canon, but spending time with her in this story before seeing her die is just another nasty gut punch for the audience. Unsurprisingly, William spends his days mourning and not eating. It gets so bad that Uberta has to visit and comfort him. They both bond over losing their respective spouses, both of whom were close friends to their royal counterparts, and Uberta gives William the advice she was given about going on living in honor of Aubrey, especially now that he has Odette to take care of. We also get a better use of the color saturation effect when a moonbeam enters the room and shines on baby Odette.
Yes.
Now, if it had ended there, this would have been a pretty good origin story for Uberta and characters of her generation. We get expanded lore for her and Max and William that feels pretty believable, and it shows a more human side to them that was previously hidden. But there's still a half hour left, so we jump back to the present where Uberta puts on the show to a round of applause. Once backstage, she tells Rogers of her plans to step down as queen to focus on her new life as a singer.
But to step down as queen? Why, Uberta, why?
But before they leave, Queen Wixom comes to congratulate LaCroix, not knowing that this is Uberta's alter ego. Uberta still hasn't let go of her grudge towards Wixom, so she decides to autograph her rival's arm with her true name.
So happy to have met my biggest fan.
In any other world, this would have led to war. Uberta then reveals her plans to Derek and Odette. Both are taken by surprise, given that they thought they'd only take over for her when she was, well, you know.
Did.
Yeah, she really wants to spend her life as a singer, but first she'll make these two king and queen through a memorable coronation. After a brief moment of Jean-Bob thinking of moving away to live with the future king and queen, instead of with his usual buddies, we get the return of Elise and Lucas. They're in charge of crowning Odette and Derek, and Lucas is even granted the title of prince to carry out that role in the ceremony.
I believe it was something like this.
This is Uberta at her best. So let's follow up with a silly scene. Queen Wixom gets to this shady tattoo parlor to remove that autograph. Couldn't she just wash it off? I don't think permanent marker is permanent on skin, but point is, she's mad and wants revenge. After another pointless Jean-Bob bit, Uberta sings a song to Odette about making a good coronation event.
They may try to resist, but politely insist, and they'll find rewards they never knew.
I guess it's about encouraging people to do their best. Also, nice of Lucas's dad to have recovered from his arm injury, I think. Odette is pretty nervous about being the next queen and now hoping that her mother could be here to guide her.
Is it too much to ask? Hello, my darling. Mother. A story with another side.
Okay. We've had ghosts before, and they've never met in person. I'll allow it. Queen Wixom is also invited to the party, but she hasn't gotten over the marker incident.
Oh, it's a girl!
Then there's this mystery man in the wagon, stopping by where Magnus lived. I think it's clear who it is. The day of the coronation arrives, and Chamberlain has made our heroes some really good-looking outfits. Meanwhile, Queen Wixom decides to adopt all the dogs from the David Lodge guy, who suspects something, but for now, the ceremony is about to begin.
All clear here! Security 1 to Security 2. Report.
Security 2. All clear.
Well, they did go wireless before. With the sun setting, Rogers has his men use some crazy device to raise a stage from the ground, almost like it's phasing out from it. A carpet rolls out for Uberta and her children to walk on, and so far things look stunning, until Wixom's dogs appear nearby and look to disrupt things, until... It would have been nice to see what made him change his mind towards Uberta, but I guess it can't all be perfect. Wixom gets annoyed and decides to sneak into the underground area to do some direct sabotage. Puffin and friends go down to stop her, and a funny fight ensues.
You ripped my castle!
Okay, that's funny. She breaks the lever, which causes everything to retract, but Jean-Bob stops it by sticking a hammer into the gears. While that keeps the stage from sinking, the fireworks go off early and are veering towards the audience. Wixom looks proud of what she did, and Uberta is looking defeated.
It would be cruel to let this event define Queen Uberta. For this day is just a moment in a grand story.
She is right, because throughout the movie we have seen her be kind-hearted and compassionate without giving up her quirkiness and bubbly personality. Although, as one of her points to this, we're given a 2D animated scene from the first movie. It's out of place, but damn it, bring this back for real!
She is Uberta, the Queen of Queens.
And this is why Odette will be fine as queen, because like Uberta, she's as compassionate and empathetic as they come. Wixom and Howard attempt to sneak off right as Uberta marks Odette as the Queen of Queens, leading to her coronation thanks to Elise and Lucas. More fireworks come, and this time they don't hit anyone, though they graze by Wixom, who definitely deserves it. As expected, the mystery man was actually Magnus. He's here to present a full portrait of Maximilian for the new king and queen. As the movie ends, Derek recalls what little time he had spent with his dad and how much he loved him. But just before the to be continued message, Magnus approaches Rogers and asks if Derek knows.
He knows nothing.
And this will lead into the next movie, which we will be following up on. I'll obviously go over my thoughts on this entire storyline later, but right now, this is arguably the best Swan Princess movie among the CGI sequels. Yes, we still have Disney-inspired / Disney knockoff antics that the series has embraced, but they're sidelined for a more grounded slice-of-life story about royals who are trying to make the world a better place. Before this movie, I always thought of Uberta as just a joke character who was hit or miss in terms of humor. I was not ready for her story arc to be emotionally and dramatically engaging, and her grief for her husband's death was given the tragic weight it deserved. Speaking of, Maximilian was also a very welcome addition to the series lore. He not only had great romantic chemistry with Uberta, but his ability to do his job as a king despite not having royal blood is an echo to how his son and daughter-in-law would be so welcoming towards their subjects. We also get more screen time for both William and Aubrey, and here's where we can understand why the former has such a strong relationship with Uberta. There's just something so human about these characters that was absent in these other movies, and I am all for this sort of storytelling and character writing. And because of that, I'm willing to overlook most of the animation goofs or mistakes they have. They're minor anyway, and besides, the story and voice acting more than made up for it. So, how will they follow through with what was started? We'll find out in the very last Swan Princess movie, Far Longer Than Forever.
It's your story, so turn the page. Let the hero always be there to say